Hey folks, welcome back. Today's video is a really interesting one. If you're considering buying a BYD Seal, then what are the general pros and cons that I think you should be aware of? So this video is applicable to anybody around the world, not just Europe or not just Australia, for example. Welcome back. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Ben Alexander, for those of you that are new to the channel. So this channel is sort of turning out to be a kind of community. So if you've got a minute spare, then have a browse through the comments and just reply to someone else that you don't know, because there's loads of people actually having full-on chats in their own little world in the comment section, and it's brilliant. And I really appreciate the huge number of nice comments, and people are always saying nice things and occasionally something a bit derogatory, but that's fine. I don't mind. So I hope you're getting some sort of benefit out of my videos. So let's talk about the pros, first of all, of the BYD Seal, because it's frankly the easiest part of this video for me. Far easier than the cons. So I obviously love BYD cars, but if they do something a bit crappy, then I will say it. You know, a spoon is a spoon, as I often say, and I hate the fact that they don't clear coat the reverse sides of the bonnets. For example, that's a bit stingy. They've already gone to the effort of painting the whole bonnet. The seal is a bit cheaper than a lot of us first thought it was going to be, which is really, really good. And I can say for sure that when you're sitting in a BYD Seal, it feels like you're in a really fancy car. It's like a really nicely built car, like an Audi or a Mercedes or something like that. I'm not saying they're really reliable cars, the Audi, the Mercedes, but they feel lovely to be in. But you can actually buy a BYD Seal for equivalent of 30 to 40,000 euros, and then, you know, whatever your rebates are or incentives. I will use the euros currency based on the fact that many countries can reference themselves to that quite easily without having to use Google to figure it out. It's just quite easy if you use pounds, for example. So it's definitely a great price for that sort of money. For what is positively, I would say, a swanky car. So that's going to be great to soak up thousands of kilometers in on long trips. Kind of like the Model 3 Highland that I actually sat in the other day. When you plug into the driver's seat of that, you can tell instantly that it will be able to eat 1,000 kilometers up for a snack. Like, it will just go, you know? You're plugged in so well, and the whole thing, ergonomically, perfect. So the next pro is definitely that it's a BYD, so it comes with the brilliant build quality that I highly regard as some of the best that you can buy for your money today. It's not a million miles away from Toyota, to be frank about it, but it's not the same, but it is not far off. But Toyota aren't really making EVs, so, and you know, that's a concern, isn't it? So they have great fit and finish, brilliant paint finish, and they use high tensile bolts and metal where they should, 8.8 or 10.9 grade steel. So that's a big deal. There is a negative also related to this pro, so I'll get into that in a minute. The next pro is definitely the battery tech. BYD use the Blade batteries that we now all know quite well. So, well, I would imagine we all know quite well, the only battery that can take the harsh test known as the nail piercing test. And nothing happens other than it just gets a bit warmer on the surface of the cells. It gets to about 60 degrees Celsius, I think. So no smoke, no fire, no flames or anything like that. So if you don't know, this chemistry is called LFP chemistry, or lithium iron phosphate. And it's far better in most ways, such as it has the ability to have a higher capacity after you've done more cycles in it than, you know, if you've got a regular lithium ion battery cell. So it's less damaging to this chemistry as well for it to sit at full charge than lithium ion cells as well. So it's definitely, you know, much safer. The longevity is greater, slightly less energy dense on a chemistry level, but nobody seems to be really bothered about that. That's okay because the pros far outweigh that. The next pro has got to be the solid performance in all of the variants that are available for the Seal. It's efficient as well through the air, which helps. So when you've got the smaller battery, it still gets a good range, even though it has a 50 or so kilowatt hour battery. because it's quite efficient. So it can actually get a good rating. I think the kilometers that you can get out of the smallest battery, perfectly fine. The power as well of the slowest version, still quite fast, I think. And then you've got the dual motor version, the performance one, which is about 520 horsepower or something, roughly. So it's a supercar beating sort of power. All of them have decent range, even if you get the cheapest version. And it's still, you know, hundreds of kilometers per charge. If you get the cheapest one, you can get a proper range, you know, a couple hundred miles, something like that. The last point I will mention is that it's simply a very viable vehicle for a lot of people, and so this makes it have the selling points, you know, the quality and the price that actually help people buy and get into their first electric vehicle. So for me, that's a pro. That's just got to be one of the pros, isn't it? Now, the cons. This isn't overtly easy to decide on these. It's not that clear what should and shouldn't be a con, I suppose, because this is relative. This goes on the internet all over the world. What is a con to someone is not a con to another person. So take them with a pinch of salt. BYD, while they're known globally, they might not have the same level of brand recognition as a legacy auto company like Toyota or Honda, or the consumer trust as more established brands. So that, you know, like Tesla as well, an MG in the EV world, they've got a few more years than BYD on their back. So this is a con, because it may not really help you when it comes to resale value or the ability to sell a car as quickly in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. It may not. I actually suspect that this is not going to be a concern, but there's definitely a question mark over that, and I think a lot of people are aware of it. But I'm convinced that you'll not have an issue to sell this car in 5 years' time. You know, or it won't take. You'll get a good price, and I think you'll be able to sell it fairly quickly. I don't think you'll be really concerned. I think maybe a Tesla might be slightly better, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It has to be mentioned, sadly, but it's kind of obvious, I think. BYD doesn't come with the integrated system for the supercharger network, so you're relying basically on your ability to find working chargers and your preparedness to, you know, rock up and potentially have an issue with a charger not working, or the charging speed being a bit slow, potentially because of not warming up the batteries, or, you know, like I said, broken chargers, things like that. Teslas obviously prepare the battery to be in good condition, so that when you arrive, it will receive a charge quickly and the battery is warm enough and it can just take in all the power it can get. So if you're living with an EV that's outside of the Tesla sphere, then I think that's a really, really good thing, but you just have to be mindful of that. The other day I watched a video on YouTube, and this was new, like a couple of months ago, in the UK, MG4 at a Shell charge station where it's like 85 pence per kilowatt hour, which is ridiculous and extortionate. And the first charger didn't work, so the chap moved it to the next one. Second one didn't work, and the third one did. And it's kind of like a USB-C cable when you plug a USB-C cable in to a USB-C device like a phone or my computer. Sometimes you get half the charging speed with different cables. Sometimes a USB-C cable, though it should work, just doesn't connect with the phone or with your computer. There's some sort of incompatibility on a technological level that I don't really understand. And I think that happens with cars. There could be a glitch on the charger as well. So basically, that's a bit of a negative. It has to be named as a con, I think. You're outside of the Tesla sphere. You've got to be witty. You've got to be using your wits, I reckon. The big thing, I think, is that as far as we can see, the BYD brand is great, really, really good, and they have a commendable level of integrity when they say things, and for putting out fantastic quality work and really consistent cars. But the number one issue for me, and I think for most of you, let me know if you agree or not, it will be that we just don't know how well they are going to stand up in climates where vehicle rust is a major concern, such as the UK, where they salt the roads, because we can't see if they properly galvanise the metal for the structural parts, or, you know, wax oiled the back of the panels, for example, and how well they wax oiled the panels. You know, and some of the more general parts, not necessarily the structural parts, but the more general parts that make up the car's innards, like crash, like the bar at the front behind the bumper, where that often gets dented in a little shunt, for example. You may start to see rust after 5 years. You may not start to see rust after 5 years. Literally nobody knows at this point. The reason this was highlighted as a concern is because A, companies like Toyota really excel in this, and so that's why you'll see a lot of Toyotas from the 90s and even 80s on the roads now, because they did that properly. So we just know it's an important thing if you're trying to make a car physically still exist in one piece in 10 or 20 years. And B, it was once noted that there were rusty bolts on a car that someone once disassembled, and that car, I think it was an Atto 3, and it was only a year old, or less than a year old, and the person disassembled it somewhat, and there was some rust on a couple of bolts, basically. And that was it. What I can say, though, is that the level of attention to the sealer and how neat it is and everything, where they've put it in and around the wheel arches, things like that, is great. Really, really good. And the finish on the paint, top notch, other than the lack of any clear coat at all under the bonnet, which, as I've said, is a gripe of mine. That's just stingy. So if you buy a BYD Seal, I think it's more than likely that you'll, at the very least, enjoy it, and then maybe decide to move it on after a couple of years, maybe, possibly. But I suspect you'll love it. I genuinely think 80% of people will probably love their BYD Seal. For too long, have people only really had the choice of a Tesla, I think. And if you wanted a decent EV with all the major considerations ticked off, now at least you can go and save about €7,000 and buy basically a comparable car with loads of good things about it, no major concerns, and have something other than a Tesla, which I think is awesome. This video isn't about saying that the Seal is better or worse than a Model 3 at all. It really isn't, because I actually really like both of them. The Model 3 Highland, the regular Model 3 post 2019, and the BYD Seal. I actually think they're really awesome cars, both of them. They're just different, but they are competing for customers' money at this point. The same customers' money. And I literally know a bloke called Bernie, who's probably watching this. Hello, Bernie. And he's selling his Model 3 because he bought a Seal Performance. So this can only be healthy competition for these companies, I think. And this ultimately means that the people that are thinking about buying a Model 3 or a Seal, you'll be the ones that's winning, basically, because they're competing. They're having to lower their prices slightly, be more mindful of the price that they ask. As a side note, a company messaged me about showcasing one of their products, and I didn't even know it was a thing, and it's fantastic. So obviously I approved it. It's a sunshade type of thing that you install on the inside of a Tesla, either the Model 3 or the Model Y, and you sort of bolt it up inside and you can slide it like this. Really neat product, really, really good. And I will be installing this in a subscriber's car in the next week or two, and I'll make a video about it at the same time. It's the same subscriber that actually should be receiving his BYD Seal Performance in the coming weeks. So that will be, I think, in the first batch of deliveries. And he did say I could come and see it when he's got it. So I'll be keen to show you that when it comes. And let me know in the comments if there's anything at all you would like to see in that video when it does come. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider clicking the like button for me. And that just shows YouTube that people are enjoying my videos. And subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. I just wanted to shine a light as well on this brilliant channel that I stumbled on a couple of months ago that doesn't have nowhere near enough followers, and it's just brilliant. It's called That Damn Guide. I'll put it on the screen now for you. And the guy Mark, he's a tour guide from Amsterdam, and he goes around, I think it's pretty much every week, and does a live tour of Amsterdam. Really, really cool. If that's your cup of tea, go and I'll put a link below in the description. And it's just really, really good. I just wanted to shine a light on his channel because it's really fascinating, and it's free, and you can just go watch live tours of Amsterdam. It's brilliant, and he's really, really, really knowledgeable about the smallest of little things. So brilliant.